everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Accommodation Show. This week, I have the wonderful Quirin Schwaighofer back in the room, back on the podcast. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Bart. Hi, everyone. Really happy to be here, and thanks for inviting me again.
How things have changed, how things have grown, my friend. The last time we had you on might have been around about maybe 2 or 3 years ago. Since then, you're now up to around about 1,400 short-term rental properties under management, around about 100 relationships with real estate agency partners. You've got $60 million worth of gross booking values. Not only that, you were recently acquired by Oyo for over $50 million. You've been busy.
Yes. The short answer is yes, very busy and very intense time. I think the last time we talked was actually during COVID.
Yes.
I was alone in the office, and how things have changed since then. Yeah. 21, I think it was. Yeah.
But not without purpose. One of the things that I've known about you is that you're kind, giving, you want to help other people as you go, but you've got a lot of ambition. And one of the things that stuck with me that I talk to everybody about is you having a plan. And that plan was based around, by the time I'm X age, and you'll have to remind me, I don't know whether it was 50 years old.
You remember that.
I want to achieve X, Y, and Z. It was a really nice way to put it, because quite often when we make our plans, it can be a 1-year plan, 2-year plan, a 5-year plan. But if you base it around your age is finite, or your time is finite, and therefore you have to accomplish whatever, not by an arbitrary 1 year or 5 years. It's actually got some sort of consequence or significance on that. How do you feel you're traveling towards that goal? And was it 50, or what was that age? That you
I'm actually getting goosebumps when I think about this, because when I had to do, I was like, I'm by nature, I'm more of an intuitive person. I think the sales background, you go where the shiny, the opportunity and everything. And planning is sometimes putting restrictions into doing certain things. So by nature, I'm not someone, when I grew up, that was big in planning. But when I did my MBA in 2010, one of the courses in managerial skills was, before you lead and manage others, be really clear about yourself and what you want to do in life. And without that, it's very difficult to have an impact on other people. And that was the first time I really thought about this. Do I know what I want to do? I know where I want to go to, north, roughly, but to put this in words on paper, I wasn't able to do. So back then, 2010, it was a 15-year plan. So by, I was 30 then, 45, 44 now, a year off. We had to document what are those kind of milestones. Back then I was a sales engineer in the mining industry. I just moved from Perth to Sydney. I was on large scale projects. I didn't see my future in there, like for the next 40 years, to just continue working in mining. So it was quite challenging to do. And the scary thing is, almost everything happened down to the year that was in that plan. And that sort of, gave me the sort of insight and power to believe in what you put down. Now there's a whole thing, the universe sort of has an impact on you. But I think once you know where you go, you know what corners to take, where to turn left and right, where to say yes and no to, and it becomes easier. And then things happen if you keep pushing and you keep.
That's incredible, Quirin. I had no idea that it was kind of that accurate. I'd love you to help everybody and break that down a little bit. So you're going on that journey, and you're saying that every year your goals and your ambitions were very much aligned with what you had envisaged. Now, were you adjusting as you went? Because quite often as business owners, what we start off with 1 year becomes completely different. My prime example is during the Strive conference. It was something that we never, ever intended, but it just happened. It was great. It's a great platform. And it's something we enjoy doing, and we enjoy bringing it to the public. But that wouldn't have been in my plan. I would have had plans around growth and strategy and that sort of thing. Tell me about, you said that you were hitting those milestones. Tell me what those milestones might have been, and whether you were adjusting as you went.
So I started with where I wanted to be, and that was, I wanted to be financially independent by 45. So that was clear to me. I don't want to be in a situation that I have to do what I what I do because of cash flow, because of me being in life by that point. And that's how I grew up with my parents. They did big bets. My dad also has been in real estate, always having his own business, and it didn't all turn out great. So I grew up with a lot of dependency. We had great times and then times where it was really, really difficult on the cash side. I had to start working when I was really, really young, have an income, finance my life. And that sort of is something that I still feel like when I'm financially, I have to do something to pay. It is really causing me stress. So my big thing was financially independent by 45. And then I was like, how do I get there? Going back, one big lesson was I'm really not the one that is sort of getting excited by I keep doing what I do and I just put money on the side and that accumulates. That's maybe the smart way of doing it. I know I'm not really good in this. So it was like, okay, what would you like to do? And what I also did in the MBA, I got a lot of exposure to quite successful entrepreneurs and other people that build businesses and got an insight into that. And going back to the point when I studied, because I had to work and finance my life, I had my own restaurant, cocktail bar that was quite successful. And I stopped doing this. But it reminded me I was really excited doing my own thing. And I only did a job or started working because I thought I don't study, I didn't do my master's, and then just to run a pub. That was my mindset back then. And then a few years later, it just reminded me, hey, I really enjoy building things. And this is what I want. So I was like, okay, I want to have a company. And then how do I get to an exit that makes me financially independent? And then going backwards, was a sales engineer. I set the marks. Okay, within a year, I want to be manager. Within another couple of years, I want to be general manager, leading, having financial P&L responsibility. And then it was like 5 years later, by 2000 and what would have been 15, I want to start my own thing, make this a global thing by, sort of 5 years later, and then exit with 45. That was sort of the whole plan. I was promoted within 6 months of writing that plan to national sales manager. Back then, it was like I was more into titles back then. I was like, wow, I did it. But I was really pushing for it. One thing, I'm highly competitive. Maybe one of my biggest traits is like I'm so competitive it is not healthy sometimes. And when I want something, I go so much for it that you have to cut my arm off, I think, or I'll just be a dead body that is pulled behind this thing. I would not let go. That sort of maybe enabled me to achieve a few things because I was pretty ruthless in regards to my what I sacrificed first in regards to hobbies, in regards to friends and other things to achieve certain bits. And then, of course, it opened the eyes on opportunities when those opened to not just start MadeComfy, had another startup before, but especially with MadeComfy, to be open for it. Say, this is it. This is this potentially global business I wanted to build. And that's why we also always looked at MadeComfy. Was for me like, do it big or not at all, because my goal is something big. It was, how do we make this the world's most loved short-term rental brand from the beginning? How we do this has changed, but the aim has always been to build something that is significant. And a lot of then, things happened with COVID and so on in the meantime. But it just kept that kind of thing in my mind. And that also helped when I got approached in the end last year by Oyo to understand, hey, look, you're actually full on track with your plan. That it was all about, is this something that is really worthwhile for shareholders? Is it something that is exciting for Sabrina and me? And having that plan in place, it just allowed me to be open to something that now in hindsight was a really, really good decision rather than just saying no to it.
One of the key themes that has come out of the Building It series is, I would say 90, actually everyone has said that the planning was a massive part of their success and everything they're doing. One thing that actually comes to mind as you're telling us about your plan is it really does feel that it was quite financial, that it's, I'm going to do all these things and sacrifice to then achieve this financial goal. So then you can have your freedom and then look after your
life
health
goal
and then all that kind of stuff. Did you? But before I go there, actually, I want to ask about the adjustment of the plans, because you said that you had a vision. I imagine, how often would you be reviewing your goals? Would it be every year? Would it be 6 months? Or was it kind of just that's what it is? And also, what would you have done had you not been aligned with those goals? So great, you're driven, you got there, but for a lot of people, it doesn't work. You've got a lot of skill, passion, but you also have to have luck, right? What if you got unlucky and for some reason you didn't get the promotion?
No, of course. Just to go back to this, it's not the financial. It was not a numbers game. It was to be able to be independent of having to have an income to have a life. And I've got 3 kids. I want to be able to look after my parents, and I want to be able to have a comfortable life that is not measured in certain cars, certain kind of houses. It's just being able to not have that pressure that you have to do something that you don't want to do. That's sort of the big thing on there. So that's sort of been always this kind of thing. Of course, it's linked to financials, because if you live in Sydney, it's difficult with no income to be in Sydney. Yeah. So by going back to the point, I personally, I would challenge it every day, every night. Everything that happens is sort of, I don't know how to explain this, but I've got this thing, almost people sitting on my shoulder, like, is this the right thing? What about this? What about? It's constantly being able to challenge what you do, and I just can't stop it. Now, we talked before we started recording here a little bit about what keeps us up at night, and this is this kind of these voices that constantly challenge: is what you do the right thing? What we haven't talked about, like, MadeComfy, we're really big on values. So there are a few things, that pillars that we will not change, we will not touch. They're just not up for discussion. And then, of course, comes the life goal. But anything else is a variable of how we do it. And that is a learning that I had very early, like in my sort of life, being able to adjust. If you can't do something, find a way around rather than keep on trying to run through that wall. Sometimes you have to run through walls because you can actually go through them. But most of the time, it's just navigating through the labyrinth in a faster way that others are. And that's all about building a business. You're more agile than bigger businesses that have by far more capital and money. But you are more agile, figuring out how to add value to people and your stakeholders and achieve the vision that you have as a business.
100%. Look, love it. Thank you. It makes a lot of sense, and I think that's really valuable for people that are out there to think about these things, get their plans written down, or at least in their mind. And for me, the biggest takeaway is using your age as a landmark for you to aim towards. I want to move more into some of the building it sort of concepts, because at the end of the story, of this current story, is the acquisition, which happened quite recently, and obviously there'll be more to come. And I'm going to ask for forgiveness from the audience for not telling your entire story today, because we just don't have enough time to fit in, all the foundation elements. And I believe that we did probably cover quite a bit of this in our previous episodes. So please rewind and have a listen to those. We'll put them in the show notes as well, so you can go and find them. But I want to focus on the past maybe 2 to 3 years. I think maybe even since that kind of COVID, everything changed in COVID. Everything was great for short-term rentals, actually. ADRs through the roof, occupancies very, very high. I'm not saying that there's not challenges, but the industry, you know as well as I do, that there was a good place to be as an industry. What was interesting for me is watching MadeComfy progress in its own path. And I think that it was very easy for everyone to sort of go, sort of kind of just keeping what they're doing, keep adding owners and that sort of thing. But one of the things that I saw that you guys had done was to start to pivot and to work closer with real estate agency partners and build a product around that. And that's something that I don't think many people know about, or know how you've done it, or how that worked, and maybe what some of that strategy or vision is around that. Are you happy to share some of the background of that, and maybe some bits that I might have missed?
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, like all of us that were in hospitality during COVID have their maybe memories, scars. I still have nightmares from it. I think it's an event that will never leave me, and it's still really emotional. Back then we were just about to raise our Series B. We had 3 months of runway. So as a business, we've been unprofitable on purpose for a large proportion of our time to build and invest, and that's why we raised capital to fund our cash flow. So for that, we had 3 months of runway in March until June. We were quite well progressing. And then suddenly, so remember that I was supposed to go to an Airbnb event in Bangkok, and that was canceled because there was something. And then suddenly borders closed. We won the shorties. I didn't go to the shorties because I was worried that we would get locked out and I can't come back in. And then everything just changed. There was this realizing that something can change overnight and everything is gone. Yeah, that was the moment I think that had a big impact on Sabrina, me, everyone that was already involved, because we knew pretty much that's it. There's no way you can continue, like revenue down 70-80%, unknown certainty. We have to raise capital. Uncertainty in capital raising is like doesn't work out. Yeah, that was the big moment. Just talking about that because that was a reason why we looked at a few things. We looked at how do we continue the business anyway. How do we close the business was the first thing. How do we tell shareholders? How do we do our sort of team and employees? But accelerating this a little bit, we were able to find a way to continue. We got funding from our shareholders, and JobKeeper kicked in and things like this. So, but during this time, we never ever thought, okay, let's just continue. We kept thinking about how do we continue to build the world's most loved short-term rental brand. And what we knew for a fact, after a few months when other countries opened up and a lot of capital went into like the Vacasas, the Sonders, but nothing in Australia because the borders kept being closed, not as country, but state borders and all these things. So
and it's very far away.
Yeah, for anyone. Yeah. So what we knew is like accessing capital is really difficult. There is, of course, the upside coming after COVID in short-term rentals with not necessarily the revenge travel, but everyone's thought again about how to travel, flexibility on working. So much change in how people move around. So we knew there's a significant chance. And having that vision, building this kind of large company, and being aware there is little access to capital was like, how do we get around this? We will not be able to like buy other companies. We're on the back foot pretty much. And that's when we looked at three things. We said, okay, let's do an all tech platform. I think some companies did that. We pretty much quickly went away from, we also do long-term rentals because there was no path to build something big with long-term rentals with that, like some others did. So we were really clear what not to do. The platform was like so many people do it. Again, we will be on the back foot. Then it was around franchising MadeComfy. There are a few that sort of went with that. And then we were like, that was my favorite, actually. I was so hard on franchise. And then one of our team members, Daryl, came and said, hey, how about these real estate agents? And I was like, oh, real estate agents, are we competing with them? What do you mean? And he's like, well, a lot of them really want to do it and they don't do it. And the ones we compete against, some of them really don't want to do it. So there is a chance. And I was really against this. Like, no, it's really not. Let's just focus. And I realized that I'm actually opposing my opinion on to someone that is really coming up with an idea. And what we had these kind of pods during COVID, where we said, okay, we have someone from sales, marketing, operations, and for example, finance, and we work on ideas. And then that pod sort of came up with the whole business model of how would it look like with a franchise? What fees can you charge? How does it look like with real estate agents? And two things real estate agents have that a franchisee will never have. They have an incredible access to supply. Properties in Australia get traded every 7 to 10 years, whereas an investment property, and 76% of properties are managed by real estate agents. So you get access to a significant proportion of the market. And there is a way to actually help real estate agents by helping them to do something, to not lose clients, and to add more value to their clients, which they were all open to. So we switched our mindset from solving the property owner's problem only to solving the problems of someone that is having access and a relationship with the property owner. And we got to that because the goal was always like building something big. When we did then the financials on this, it was like so obvious that this is a very intelligent way to do it, but highly complex, very difficult, because change management in real estate, very, very difficult. Like to change someone, to use different systems, really difficult. So we knew there's a pathway, but we have to do it with very little change and very little, forcing people to do stuff.
Yeah, so it's easier to say yes than to say no, right?
So I would say property managers, I'd say they're easy to say no to new things, and then they would say yes, unless you make it really easy. So it becomes easy to say yes. Yeah,
absolutely. Okay, so
that was in 2021 when we launched it.
And that's really interesting. Yeah, okay, it's really interesting because I kind of feel that you didn't really talk about it much, and like it was kind of like maybe I just didn't talk to you enough over that time. And as an industry as well, no one was really talking about real estate agents. I feel like you guys grabbed it, ran with it, and now everyone's kind of looked back and went, "Oh, that's that's what they did." And this company's now catching up, right? Just going, "Oh, we should target real estate agents as well." Do you feel that's the way it was, or have I got this wrong?
Yeah, I mean, we kept it quiet, so it was not on our website until 2024. That's when we announced it officially. And that was it, literally to have the time to learn, to experiment, to understand, to build. So very early we knew that the complexity here comes around task management, information flow. Suddenly you have another step. We know all. It's so complex already. You're a property owner, a guest, and then you're the manager and tradies. Now we're adding another layer of complexity with the person who actually owns the relationship with the property owner. So that part is really, really difficult. And that's something where we had to build processes and technology around it to ensure everyone has the transparency they have to have. And when you have to have fast decisions, as we all know, long term to replace an air conditioner maybe takes a month. Short term, we're talking here about hours and days to fix things. So fast paced decision making, all of that. So those are some of those challenges. Trust accounting comes to this as well. And then literally, how do you ensure everyone understands what it means to run a short-term rental? How do you manage objections? So all of that we had to really build and do. So we're confident if others want to do it too, they need to raise a lot of capital, build a lot of technology, or just have a lot of time to build it over time. And we are on the front foot with it. So that's why we started talking about this quite late. When we were clear that
you had moats, right?
You have an advantage.
Moats for people to get through. Interesting, because one of the other things that strikes me when you were talking about your different paths to growth, so you had the franchise model, you had the real estate model, but you also one of the most traditional ways is to acquire, and that's not something that obviously you need capital to be able to do that. It's got its own complexities. I think it's quite slow. You don't have access to as much stock as you with the real estate agency. Have you acquisition, was that part of the equation? You guys haven't done any acquisitions, have you?
No, we have not. So I think everyone has their way of growing. We've been exposed to this several times, and I think you have to look at what are you good at as a business. How does this align with what you really want to build and achieve? And if a consolidation of a market, like it's often a private equity game, most of the time. When you look in our industry, those kind of companies that got at some point is private equity backed. They love that kind of stuff. The part, of course, that we sort of look at, there has not been this kind of big thing. Like you do that, it's highly complex. You're acquiring smaller businesses, and it is in the end, yeah, it is. I say it is a hard thing. You have to replace people that want to sell, want to get out at some point. Every acquisition you make adds a little bit more of complexity, and then you get to a point where you either own all the processes and you run the operation systems and it's your technology that needs a certain scale, so you can actually do this in a profitable way, or you then just stop at a certain point and then you look for the next one that sort of buys it. For me, I've just not seen there's a pathway to get to a certain size, 100%. I think when we look at Alogio, my hometown, do this really successfully, how they pick great businesses and how they then use EBITDA multiples to justify buying them at a certain multiple and hedging on the idea that they get a different EBITDA multiple, like the typical private equity game. I just didn't believe in it myself for us at MadeComfy, that we have the capabilities to do this better than anyone else. And I think going back to my competitiveness, a little bit is like we have to do things by far better than anyone else to give it a big shot. Otherwise, it's more of you can try it, but it is less likely to be successful if you're not really great in it. And I think those two are really, really good in it. And then we'll see where these things sort of go to. I knew that we don't have that kind of level of excellence maybe in that space, and again, couldn't see the end game in it myself. Yeah. So that's difficult then from a motivational point of view and all of that.
Sure. Look, that's really awesome. I didn't expect us to be talking about all the different models of growth and scaling.
That's the thing in our industry. There's so many models. Yeah. There is not one or two. Right? There's so many, and they're all somehow successful or not, and that makes it so interesting. That's why I think your show is so interesting for many, because there's so many ways of looking at it and running it, and you can learn all the time. Correct. There's no right way, and there's hardly any wrong way. Correct. It's just what is really, really works for you and your market. So that's
really the great thing about the industry as well, right? Is you can do things in different ways, and that's where innovation really comes from. Is people doing things differently. But I want to just as we wrap up this little part, and then I want to go into the acquisition part and that journey, because it's really important, I think, for everybody to learn about the journey and to kind of get behind the scenes a bit and to feel what you went through. But just on the real estate agent part, so you were a naysayer. You're like, nah, this isn't going to work. You're more into the franchise thing. Then you started to sort of pivot and change your mind and go in that path. At what point did you know this is really a great strategy for us, amongst all the other things that you're doing, of course, right? You're not going to stop doing the things that work. When were you like, hey, yeah, we're onto a winner here. Let's double down on it? Or was it just sort of like a natural, it's just something that we do as part of everything that we offer?
Like when we started MadeComfy, our first customer we had within 2 days, Julieta, 2-bedroom townhouse in Paddington. And then we got referral after referral from there. And it just grew really, really quickly. And then the complexity hit a certain level. And that was a point when we started MadeComfy, actually not as MadeComfy. It was a key exchange platform. That's why our legal entity name is Key Flickers, Pty Limited. We never bothered to change or to pay the $350 to change the entity name. And at some point, it became too complex. But that was our initial one. And then MadeComfy had this kind of traction. I was like, this will be bigger than a key exchange platform. And with MadeComfy Pro, it was very similar. When we launched it, we had our first interested partner, Crown Realty, Luke Vaughan, in Gold Coast within, I think it was first conversation that Daryl had, knowing that Luke is also an entrepreneur, someone that is in Gold Coast, where if you don't do short term, you're really missing out big time as a real estate agent and property manager. So he was onto it. It was like immediately successful, despite having no really technology yet. It was a concept. And we got 2, 3, 4 referrals. We had McGrath immediately on the door. We had Harcourts, and all really quickly on head office level. So we saw there is a lot of interest. When people come to you and you actually haven't any advertising, it's on this. And that's when you realize, there's something. And when people come to you and ask, hey, I heard, like, how does it work?
It's Nirvana, right? It's Nirvana. And you've got to make sure you don't miss it as well, right?
Yeah. You don't miss it and you don't mess it up.
Okay. And then you miss the actual what's happening in front of you. there is this opportunity.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's the thing when having smart people around you, experienced people. Like I had people, I was mentioned like Cliff Rosenberg, Rolf Hansen, and then Simon Lehman, like around you that help you with like, let's do this now. And it's like, ho. Like, remember, Georg Schmiel was actually one of them, the ex-CFO of realestate.com.au, investor and advisor to us. We said, like, remember, it is a really close industry.
Yeah.
Don't deliver. It goes quick.
Yeah.
And that was an important part why we then we went on the brakes to deliver, to enable each of those kind of franchises or real estate agencies. They have a brand, they have a reputation. There's only one, like one owner, but suddenly it is one partner in a market. If you don't do it well, that speaks around. And that was the bit that we then had to fix. How do we, with no capital really, how do we build that? We knew it's exciting, but we had to be really, really careful that we are not over promising. And we definitely had our challenges and hiccups at the very beginning there.
Yeah.
That were difficult to overcome.
Yeah. And one of the things that really strikes me as well, Ken, is everything that you always talk about is building big. And it's that mindset that also when you're building this stuff, you're being careful because you're thinking, it's not about those individual relationships, it's about the much bigger picture that if you screw it up, you're absolutely in the shit because the opportunity is there because you're getting the feedback from the market saying, hey, yes, we want this kind of product. But you're realizing that there's massive penalties if you get this wrong and you don't deliver on it. But Quirin, we've got 15 minutes. And we've got a lot to cover. So I'm going to keep pushing us forward because I know that everyone's desperate on the edge of their seats. They're waiting for us to talk about Oyo, about this huge acquisition, monumental in terms of the industry in Australia, biggest acquisition by far, monumental across the world. It's great to talk to people across the world and they're like, yeah, I heard about that MadeComfy acquisition. That's really, I really love when Australia's out there on the main stage and talking about what we do. It's terrific. So I want to make sure that we spend enough time on this and give people sort of insights as to how that went. And I think one of my first questions really was, I mean, like you've talked about your goals, which is great, and exiting and that sort of stuff, which you kind of haven't exited, but we'll talk about that in a sec. But Oyo, so you already mentioned it. They came to you.
Yeah, I mean, like we were not looking out there to find a buyer for MadeComfy. Like there's been relentless rumors around the industry and on things since I think we started. We've never really reached out to anyone. We were approached by a few in the past, from private equity to other sort of funds, but as I said, we have a certain vision, not just what I want to be with 45, but Sabrina and I wanted to achieve something with MadeComfy, building something that leaves some legacy behind and changes an industry in a positive way. So what happened was we were like heads down into like further growing, scaling MadeComfy Pro. We have plans to roll it out, not just in New Zealand, but we've done, but also in the US and other sort of Anglo-Saxon markets where you have real estate agents and property managers. That was our core focus. And then I still remember it was August last year when I just occasionally I do check my LinkedIn. I'm not in LinkedIn every day. I check my LinkedIn, and usually there's a lot that comes to me in regards to more like cold calling, as I always call it.
And you've got me in there as well. Hey, Quirin.
Like, yeah, but I know you, right? So it's this, but like these contact requests and so on. Usually at times I miss it and I don't even look at it for a month.
Yeah.
But then I looked at it and there was a message in there from someone in Oyo, a quite casual photo of the person too. I think he's changed it since. But very senior in the company. When I checked him out, I was like, okay, this is not just some analyst that is doing their quotas and outreach. And I think some of us might have seen this, like we get a lot of big funds and you have these calls and that's just going nowhere because they're just doing their due diligence on other deals often. So that was one of those where, okay, that's a bit weird. Like this might be real. Then I responded, "Hi, I'm happy to sort of have a first chat." And then that sort of was real. It was a real profile. And the second call, I had a call with that person, and what I really liked from the beginning was the depth of understanding and knowledge of our industry. He's also 9 years with Oyo, so gone through COVID in the ups and downs, and having someone that is, you can see the passion, hyper intelligent, ex McKinsey, really, really, really quick, and you have a conversation that goes so quick somewhere, versus someone that doesn't know our industry, who doesn't know what we do, and that was really exciting. But I really thought, oh, this is just maybe some kind of fishing around. But then the second call, or he suggested, hey, next call, let's do this with Ritesh. And of course, I've if you know our industry, I think you would have, a few people. Ritesh Agrawal is one of those. I've followed from the side what he's done in India with Oyo, with incredible, thinking big my way is is a bit of a miniature Lego compared to what he actually was able to do in India, getting the kind of support, exposure, leaving things behind. I think he got the whole Peter Thiel sponsorship very early with 19, didn't have a passport, went to the US, and did, I think, what you can. Got SoftBank, Lightspeed Ventures, and so many things. So when I saw him,
we're going to have him on the podcast next, aren't we?
Yeah, I think he's on Shark Tank India now. I think Shark Tank India is the largest Shark Tank audience in the world, and it's big there. It's anyway. So when I knew I could be on the call with him, I was like, okay. I called Simon Lehman, or chairman at the point, and said, hey, Simon, because I know he met Ritesh, and I said, can you just be on the call? Just want to make sure it's him. And that this is all genuine. And then, Simon, Ritesh, and Shirish, we were on the call. And I didn't need Simon to verify that Ritesh is real. The charisma, the in-depth of knowledge, the humbleness. I've not seen this many, many times of someone that is on his level in the detail of housekeeping, cleaning himself, what we maybe all have done. What stuck most in my mind was when I sort of that was me pitching sort of MadeComfy, and I sort of said, look, with MadeComfy Pro, when you ask, can you explain me what you do? And I sort of explained, look, what we do is a much smaller scale than you do. Right? So it's really, really small, but we have 40, back then we had 45, 50 real estate agents, and we are working with them and enabling them to grow. And this is how now our 70% of our properties are through those agencies. And his response was, what I really will never forget is look, Quirin, don't make yourself small here. What you are doing there is much bigger than what we were able to do in Europe. We've looked at that, and we haven't seen anyone that got over 10 partners like this. So what you're doing is actually a multiple of what others have achieved in other locations. And he said, I've seen a lot. So that kind of humbleness, it's been always eye to eye, depth, passion after 12 years was when I thought wow, this is not just some pathway to an exit. It's an opportunity to work with someone like Ritesh, other people within Oyo that are passionate about what they do. Big goals, so much alignment with what we want to do. So that's the moment when I thought, okay, this is a real opportunity, and it's a real option for us to proceed.
So from the Oyo perspective, two things that come to mind. One is that the MadeComfy as a company, how do they know about you? And was it the awards? That's one part I'd really love to know, how they knew about you. And surely it's not that hard to find the top property management companies, right? You can probably air DNA it, and then they might approach all of them. So how do they know about MadeComfy? And then I take it that the MadeComfy Pro product would have been pretty much hidden, right? I don't imagine they would have approached you based on that product or some sort of a vision with that, I imagine that their vision was it was different to what it might have ended up being with the conversation.
Yeah, so like with most of our like bigger steps, it was based on a referral. So as I mentioned, our first customers, first MadeComfy Pro partners, even the first investors we were introduced to, and we didn't reach out. It was based on a referral from one of the 3 OTAs. And we approached them, hey, that's what we're looking at. We've done this Check My Guest acquisition that went really, really successful. We're looking at some other opportunities, and especially some markets where they were not. And so ANZ is one of those high, attractive markets where you have high ADRs, a large component of internal domestic travel, so you're not too reliant on international travel, and high quality stock. And so it really fits into this Oyo belief in building a business around high class, top class assets in the sort of alternative accommodation sector. And yeah, they asked for whom, and we were recommended by that, because on that platform we've been a very successful partner to them. And that was the recommendation. They reached out, and yeah, I mean, like, a lot has to add up. No? Like, it's not like, oh yeah, there's MadeComfy Pro, this is all great. There's so much that goes on around, like, are the founders willing to continue? Are they strong? Is the business, how does it look like? From our side, it has to work too. Now, we have shareholders, we have investors. There's so much complexity. Once you have this early intro, it's like Google speed dating thing where your friend recommended, like, a lot of relationships come from you were recommended, introduced, but hey, I know Bart. So Sabrina, for example, and we met because some friends knew us and said, hey, you guys might maybe like each other. And Sven and Marcella did this, Sven being German, Marcella being Peruvian. So it worked out fast. So I think often you get these intros, but then you still have to make it work. And I did not see this. I had no idea about how to go through this. I thought capital raising is hard, but doing that process was really, 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 that was the most difficult thing I did in my life. And it sort of comes with a lot of ups and downs in the process. And it's not a great straight line. A lot happened in the world as well since tariffs, geopolitical changes, markets, but yeah.
So that first contact, August 2024? Okay, so it wasn't actually that long ago. So it's a year. Probably for you, it feels like an eternity.
Yeah.
And, was it quite obvious at the start that there's something going on, that they're interested in going down this path? So therefore, the conversation was aligned around that goal to make something happen for some sort of an acquisition, some sort of thing. Were they pretty upfront about what they were intending with you guys to start off with, or was it something that needed to be massaged as the conversations kept on going? And how, when you met with Ritesh, was he already like, yeah, this is what we want to do? Or was it a bit more, let's get to know each other and then we'll find out how that kind of relationship might work?
Now, what I like with sort of the Indian culture to combine it with the German culture and way of dealing things, very direct. So there is little sort of dancing around. And that was something I liked. It was from the beginning, it was very clear what the intention is. And of course, Oyo has done this a couple of times. They had a really clear path as well. And have sort of experienced what works for them to sort of get to an outcome that they're looking for. So it was from the beginning. And I think you have to have the conversation. If we're not open to it and there's no pathway, you waste a lot of time. If the actual intention is to grow in a certain way.
But so to me, that sounds like they already had a vision to approach you with, right? It wasn't your vision to approach them with. They were saying, hey, this is what we want to do. We want to find someone that's going to fit in within that, and let's then create a plan which is going to work together.
The idea that they have from the beginning is you acquire Now, and it's different maybe to the acquire and consolidate, is acquire and grow. So that's a bit of a different model that they, now I can say we, which is still a little bit weird, that we can do is, it is not that you acquire and then you sort of keep them and sort of grow. It's acquire something and then grow it, so it becomes meaningful across the overall business, and that was clear to them. So that's why it was from the beginning. That's what we want to do. This is where your vision really aligns with what we want to do. I think what a lot of testing. Are we, Isabel and I, still passionate in this? Are we energetic? Do we feel like we want to do things? It doesn't really touch sort of this buy and out a bit. It's like growing and sort of keeping those kind of assets in it. So it was from the beginning quite obvious on it. It was more like, how do we get a deal done? That was not a straight line because of complexities on each side, international borders, international common practice, different common practices. Yeah, so that was.
So did you have a third party involved in the middle there to sort of try to help to massage the deal across the line?
So we were quite fortunate that with Commensa we have. Hold it, can't believe it. Dog. That Commensa is a sort of a fund that has done M&A before and sort of exits. So it's been it's just like to lie down there. Sorry.
That's good.
It's not into dogs.
Yeah, this is a real podcast.
Dogs are cute. But now he's realizing he's on camera. Sorry for everyone. But yeah, I've got 2 dogs, golden retrievers. If you like have kids, they're amazing with kids. Anyway, so we had Commensa, a lot of experience with deals. Was quite clear that we want to run it internally. Dave Phillips was sort of spearheading that. Also, I think from a founder, having someone else that then does certain tough negotiations, knowing that I would have to continue in the business, having then Dave in it was really, really helpful. So we decided not to law firm. Of course, we worked with Maddox. Anyone like looking for a great law firm, I think they were working a lot with Airtree and other portfolio companies. Incredible support. The issue we really had, we thought we closed this by Christmas, and it's quite an easy thing. That was the intention on all your side and on our side and everything. But yeah, didn't close to Christmas, obviously. It became a bit more complex. But yeah, legal side, we had support. But other than that, we sort of dealt.
Right. Okay. So if we're talking about August being that first contact point, by Christmas, you guys are like, the deal's going to be done. So things were moving very, very quickly from the outset.
Yeah,
right?
really quick.
So September,
really quick
October,
focus.
You guys have done a lot of your due diligence, right, at that point. And then I take it the valuation probably would have been sorted out, and most of that deal structure would have been done before that Christmas time.
Yeah, so a lot of those kind of anchor points, like they were set really, really, really early, how it would look like and all of this. And of course, then you have a continuing sort of business on all your side, on MadeComfy side, and the world again, sort of changing with elections in the US that definitely had an impact on a few things. I can talk about a bit later, but yeah, so that was set quite early, and then it was just about. No, so I shouldn't really say just, because that was really hard. It was around executing, making sure everyone is comfortable. Of course, when you think about on all your side, it's about how do we ensure that everything is the way it should be. We're not really in Australia.
Yeah.
Is it really that we keep the founders? How do we protect us from all those scenarios? And the same, we had to also, of course, ensure we are protecting us, we're protecting our shareholders and all of that. And that is a lot of talking, a lot of, and then of course you have a lot of people traveling different time zones. I don't know how often we had like 1 a.m., 2 a.m. sessions for someone, and you just had to make it work. Yeah, it was complex.
And I take it because you also had directors as well that were able to help to guide you through that whole process. And you'd done fundraisers before, so it wasn't completely foreign to you, these sort of challenges. And as you said, you're also growing the same business. Now, for lack of time, Quirin, I'm going to keep pushing forward a little bit. So you get the deal done. The announcement's been made, which is great. Maybe a few false starts, but we got there in the end, which is great. And now moving forward, kind of ambitions, goals, like you said, it's acquire and grow. So for growth, you need a lot. A lot of what you're acquiring is obviously the business and the context, but the business is the people, right? And you are the people. And if you're not there to drive it and not to be aligned with Oyo's vision, Risesh's vision and goals, it's not going to work. So, and it's very well reported what Oyo's ambitions are. It is to grow and to expand hotels worldwide, that sort of thing. But obviously, you're part of the puzzle. You're part of that growth part. And I imagine because of the size of the deal and because of your experience, you will be a big part of that growth journey. Am I getting it right?
Yeah, that's obviously what everyone's intention is. On our side, on Oyo's side, core focus, of course, in ANZ, accelerating growth in Australia, in New Zealand. There's a lot of, when we think we're working now with 100 real estate agents of, what was it, like 40,000. There's a lot of headway to be in front of the right real estate agents that want to grow, that want to differentiate, and that want to have a meaningful size in their market. That is one bit accelerating this. There are a lot of accommodation types that we are not in so far. So there's a lot of focus on ANZ, and then comes international. So what we do works in Australia. We do know it works in other Anglo-Saxon markets, wherever you have a property manager, real estate agent in the game. So when we look at other countries in the US and Northern Europe, there's a lot of opportunity for us. And of course, right, the end game on sort of any acquisition that Oyo has is to be helping the entire business to achieve their targets and milestones, which is all around now focusing on building a highly profitable global hospitality platform.
And I remember specifically last interview, I was talking about a house of brands and the way to kind of do things. Where is MadeComfy going to end up within the Oyo ecosystem?
So it's going to be MadeComfy. MadeComfy continues by Oyo. That's a sub brand of the Oyo house of brands. When you look at how they are set up around the globe, you've got anything from dance center, check my guest. You've got Motel or G6 in the US.
Yep.
They all keep their brands. And it's reserved now. There's a lot of brand equity that MadeComfy has, not just in Australia, but also in general in short term. The aim is to further build on that brand equity, but within the house of brands of Oyo.
With of course the strategy has been through the real estate agents and sort of natural growth. Do you know if there's if there were to be acquisitions in the future, would that be something on the MadeComfy side that's sort of where it sits? Like, let's say we're going to the States, we want to get a crack into a new territory, we want to get some traction so we can get all our cleaners and our staff sorted and that sort of stuff, and then using a local partner to work with. Is that the plan? Are you allowed to talk about it, or is it still a bit? Don't ask too much about.
I think currently we're really focusing on the integration, on the transition, on organic growth. I think it's when I look back the last 5 years, what I thought 5 years ago, maybe wasn't. Plan is on growing. There are many ways to grow. At the moment, the sort of focus is on the organic side and what MadeComfy is strong at. But yeah, you can't exclude anything, of course. But yeah, the focus is on further expanding, growing MadeComfy. And what also Oyo does globally is another thing. In the end, there have been several acquisitions in the past, but yeah, there's nothing sort of where I can go into detail at this stage where I know this is going to happen or not.
Quirin, I've got 2 quick fire questions for you to wrap us up. One of them, what are you most excited about?
Most excited about is like really focusing on the business and no longer on the capital on the capital side.
Getting back to work.
Is really building and being in there. And I think just the last month, the amount of time I spent with MadeComfy Pro partners, with property owners, with guests, with corporate guest partners is, I really miss that a lot. And I'm like extremely passionate about that. And that is what I really look forward to. I'm already in it now. Of course, there's still a transition phase, integration phase in the next couple of months, but that bit is I'm extremely passionate and looking forward.
And my second and final question for today, what would be your top tip for an aspiring entrepreneur that's looking to build it?
One.
Just one. You can give me three if you want.
So number one, I really say know yourself. If you going back to me, what I really needed is this time to sit down and know myself. What is it that I want? What are my values? What is it what I don't want? I think this is really, really important. Be clear what you're passionate about and what you're really good at, and should be almost great. Is the second bit. It took me a while really to find this. And if I was to go back in time, of course, I really always want to end up in Australia. Like I could have done this. I didn't need my 10, 12 years in mining, in corporate life. I didn't need that. I learned a few things, of course, but I think I learned much quicker building MadeComfy and things like this. So know that. And the third one, like always tell people, think bold. Don't think too small. And I think big. The big saying, aim for the stars and land on the moon. But I think there is this big thing around it. Sometimes we just don't know what's possible, and by thinking big, you just might end up somewhere that you did not think is possible. And
I love that.
A lot of examples where with me, like I come from a small village in Bavaria. Like my life was pretty much destined to be somewhere there. Like you have to be Catholic, you have to be Bayern Munich fan, and you just become something there. But somehow I always had this thing in mind. I want to see the world. I want to show me what's the limit. And it sort of really got me into areas where I then discovered my passion. I met Sabrina. I met a lot of incredible people in my life by doing that. So knowing yourself, understand what you're really passionate about and great at, and then big. Really think big. And you'll end up somewhere that is not where you are today.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And I think some of these things we've spoken about in the past, I think big one is another huge one for me in terms of my journey and everything that we do. And it's a really great thought experiment as well, because you think that you're thinking big, and what if you thought bigger than what you're thinking, and how big can you actually think? So I love it. Now, folks, Quirin, first of all, thank you so much for being on the show. But folks, if you are listening to this, if you're watching this on YouTube, give us a thumbs up. Feel free to throw a question at the bottom. If I can't answer it, or my team can't answer it, I will go to Quirin and say, hey, we've got a question here. Can you please get back to that person, or we'll get answers for you. So thumbs up, subscribe, share it around. This is a huge story. And Quirin, for you, congratulations. I'm really, I don't know, am I allowed to say I'm proud of you? I'm proud of you kind of representing the industry and for having such a phenomenal success. It's great to see. I'm a champion for people that are doing cool things and having great success. And I wish you lots of it in the future. And I hope that we can also benefit from that, from hearing your stories of your success along the way. Quirin, what's the best way for people to connect with MadeComfy or to connect with you?
With me, obviously LinkedIn.
There you go. Might take a while for him to get back to you, but he will.
LinkedIn and then MadeComfy, just go on our website, madecomfy.com.au, and take it from there. But feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm usually quite responsive there.
Beautiful. Thank you very much, sir. Have a good rest of the day.
Thank you very much.